Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We're coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. It's a Monday morning coming out of a weekend, and a big sporting weekend at that, with the French Open just concluding with the really outstanding final. Actually, both the finals, the women's final on Saturday and the men's final yesterday, just amazing, sporting action on both days, really, as we will continue to pick up on some of that through the course of the next 2 hours or so. Guys, morning.
Hi, morning Prashant, morning Nigel. The only sporting action I indulged in was trying to chase some of those rain clouds. Since they weren't coming to Mumbai quickly enough, I thought I'll go outside the city and chase them. But good. I think we all could do with a little bit of peace, given the kind of week that we had. So I think the weekend was good.
And going by interactions in the first few minutes of today, it's done you good, Surbi. So good times for everyone. But Prashant, what a game last night. Alcaraz, what a champion, coming back from match point, saving 3 match points and then fighting back. I mean, it was an absolute, stunner of a game. The way he backed himself and came back stronger, got the crowd to, back him up. I think it was one of the best games I've ever seen. Maybe I saw Agassi, I think 1999, when he came back from, match points. But what a game.
I think catch the highlights. Going by what you guys are saying, this sounds like it was quite a fight.
5 hours, 30 minutes. And out of all of the days for a Mumbai power cut, at least where I stay, it was yesterday.
Oh, no.
So I had to slip out. I think it was 2 sets over. I had to slip out, go to a friend's place.
To watch it? It was that good. Wow.
Watch it. And then, of course, I came back and continued. 5 hours, 23 minutes.
Totally
worth it. The second longest ever.
So this is one for the history books.
Yeah. It is one for the history books. And I don't know, we'll, of course, talk more about this as we go on. But let's just quickly start with the market action as well. So, just a quick word with what was top of mind, because that is essentially what people pick up from Friday. And I want to start with India for a change. So all of last week's gains for the market came during Friday's session. So the market was up 1% Friday to Friday, but that 1% came on Friday. And of course, it was the RBI. RBI's front-loading cuts came as a dovish surprise. So 50 basis points and maybe now done for the year. That's essentially the signal. Credit growth is weak, under 10%. It was almost 20% same time last year. Will this, help spur some of it? Spur credit growth in that sense, right? I mean, if you think about it broadly, 250-odd lakh crore loan book, this 1% releases about 2.5-odd lakh crores in terms of liquidity. That's about 1%, right? So we'll see if this improves transmission, the CRR cut improves transmission or not. Market focus really is on, and I think this was true on Friday as well. So if you look at the large banks, the HDFCs, ICICI of the world, not much reaction. It was NBFCs. It was PSU banks, not so much though, and maybe we'll see some of that this week. And of course, some of the smaller, cheaper private banks as well. Essentially not top of the line, but I think, and of course, gold finance companies, capital market plays, I think that was the entire lot which continued to run ahead. The question really is this, is this a structural kind of change now, step up for these entities, NBFCs, PSU banks, etc., or is this a 1 or 2 day thing? And can you, and I was thinking about it, can you draw an analogy to what happened after the budget last year? I mean, if you remember, post that tax cuts, FMCG stocks all ran up for about a day, 2 days, I mean, sharply. But then if you look at the 10-day change after the budget, I mean, they all actually fizzled out. We'll find out, I think over the next 2, 3, 4 days, we'll essentially find out if some of that will play out here or not as well. But, I mean, I think it's a big signal that the RBI really wants to push growth. Okay, now Wall Street. So S&P had a good session on Friday. It closed above 6,000 for the first time since February. The changes are all up on your screen. S&P up 1, Nasdaq up 1.25, Russell 2,000 1.6. U.S. jobs data was, it was, how do I put it? It was good but unspectacular. So it kind of elevated the concerns about an imminent economic slowdown. Market kind of pushed out rate cuts, etc. The 2-year climbed above, the yield climbed above 4%. The 10-year was up 11 basis points to about 4.5%. Dollar index about 0.5, 99.19 is where the dollar index left off. Oil prices 2%. By the way, I think the oil, Brent is now closed above the 200-day moving average, I think, after a while. So keep an eye out on oil prices. Almost 67 now on oil prices. This Trump and Musk feud and that phone call, etc., there's no big climb down in that sense as we start this new week for markets. But, all the entertainment aside and all the real world implications aside, in a very real sense, I think it'll be about the passage of Trump's big, beautiful spending bill. And whether this really goes through or not, or Musk is able to force senators and Congress people to dilute it substantially before it passes through the Senate. So we'll find out. US-China teams will talk trade in the UK today. Of course, China flexed with its restrictions on rare earth, and I think this is essentially exactly a consequence of that. The talks, and of course, Trump and President Xi speaking again and deciding that their teams will sort of meet in London. Just to tie in the levels, Nifty needs to close above 25,116. And that's the first number, which will confirm further upsides. Immediate upside zone for the Nifty is 25,600 to 25,700 on the way up. And of course, supports come in at 24,797, which is the 20-day moving average, and the low, which comes in at 24,502. The Bank Nifty immediate upside level is 57,594. And on the way down, supports here come in at the 20-day, which is 55,435. Maybe the range is moved up a little bit. Will we see a clear breakout on the Nifty, especially above the 25,100 level? I think we will, and maybe we go into this new range, which is about 25,600 to 25,700. GIFT Nifty will give you a quick sense of how we are likely to start. It's up another 80 points, picking off where we left off on Friday after that RBI-led big move that we saw across the board. Surabhi.
Yeah, well, on Trump and Musk, I wonder, they say, right, it ain't over till it's over, because on Saturday there was this ominous warning from Mr. Trump that Elon Musk is going to face very severe consequences if he decides to fund Democrats and basically, disrupt the passage of this big, beautiful bill through the legislature. So let's see how that happens. But anyway, on an optimistic note, Asian markets are feeling very, very good this morning. And the reason is twofold. One, because of the non-farm payrolls report, and two, because of this hope that there is, trade optimism between India and China. So this is the number. What we got was 139,000 jobs getting added. The estimates was closer to 125 or 130,000, so it was better than what was estimated. Though, of course, there was a deceleration versus the previous month in April. The unemployment rate was unchanged. So largely, Wall Street did very well. There was a over 1% rally across the indices there. And the Asian markets have latched on to that. By the way, there's lots of data ahead, US data. It's a very heavy week. So we get the CPI numbers on Wednesday, the PPI numbers on Friday from the US, and also the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, which is very, very widely tracked in the market as well. So let's see. Now, coming to the second reason why Asian markets are feeling so euphoric, that is, of course, this hope that we will see a leg forward in US-China trade relations. The meetings will happen in London, and the entire top brass of the US administration is actually, in presence. Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, and of course USTR Jameson Greer, all of them in London. And it is Scott Bessent who will be leading the talks. And even from the Chinese side, the head of the delegation is the same person who led the talks in Geneva, which were very successful. So there's hope that there'll be another breakthrough. And ahead of these conversations, some signs of a potential thaw already here. You remember the rare earth magnet situation? Well, on Friday, we got inputs that China has started releasing some of these magnets for three top US automakers, which included Stellantis, Ford, and of course General Motors. So that's a sign of a thaw. And Boeing has started shipping its planes to China as well. So looking good on the trade front. By the way, it's also very important for Apple today. The Apple global event, the Worldwide Developers Conference, that happens today, and Tim Cook is going to be speaking. So keep an eye on tech stocks as well. For us, it was a week with a positive bias that ended with a positive bias. The consolidation had that uptick, and now the Nifty is barely 110, 115 points away from the top side of the range, the 15 to 16-day trading range that we've been in. And that's been supported by very decent flows. Again, on Friday, FII is positive to about 1,000 crores. Domestic institutions, look at the kind of buying, 9,300 crores plus coming in from DIs. Of course, there are lots of blocks, OFS, etc., that could be skewing the data, but money is coming in. That's the short point. Stocks in focus today. There's some interesting action lined up. Asian Paints, I'll watch out for this because reports are indicating, and I mean, we've also picked it up from sources at CNBC TV 18 sources, that the Competition Commission of India indeed could start an antitrust probe against Asian Paints because of a complaint that's been filed by Birla Opus Paints. So watch for this. Gold loan stocks, NBFCs like Manappuram, Muthoot, they'll continue to be in focus because now we have the fine print of the new LTV norms, and the LTV range is now between 75% on large ticket gold loans and 85% for small ticket, below 2.5 lakh rupee gold loans. And last but not the least, HDFC Bank. Now, I know a lot of us would have read the reports and all of that on what's happening. It's not a material event. But this whole allegation coming in from the Leelavati Hospital Trust, we reached out to the bank, and the bank has given us a very, very straight comment saying that all of these reports coming in against Mr. Shashidhar Jagdishan are coming from unscrupulous persons who have been abusing the legal process to thwart the recovery of long-standing loans due. Just leaving that on the table because there was a lot of chatter around this over the weekend as well. Nigel.
Well, there are two big cues that I'm looking at on the global front and the domestic front. Let's start off on the domestic front first, that US exceptionalism is not really playing out. And that's why after the big flow into the US equity markets, we are seeing that the FIs actually have gradually started pulling out. And in the past month, I was looking at a Goldman Sachs report, and they have said that there was close to $37 billion of selling in the US markets itself. Now, the interesting part is who will gain? If the money is flowing out of the US, it could find its way into Europe, and hopefully it finds its way into emerging markets like India as well. So that's one factor on the global front because it's the second straight month that the FIs have sold in the US markets. The second point is the RBI governor has given that booster shot, and it definitely indicates that he's pro-growth. But the credit growth in the system has been not very, very great. So in the time to come, you like to see, 13 to around 15% credit growth. That, is a barometer with regard to how the economy is doing as well. So on the domestic front, post the booster shot that came in from the RBI, I'll keep an eye out on a pickup in credit growth. Moving to what the FIs did, well, they clearly covered shorts in Friday's trading session. So there was a bit of a short covering bounce that you see both on index futures, covering shorts, added long positions, similar as the case with regard to stock futures as well. There was some covering of short positions and long positions added. And that's why I go on saying that when the FIs are net short, that provides you a cushion because they could get stumped on the wrong side. And that's precisely what happened. The net short positions in a single trading session came down from around 106,000 contracts to around 92,000 contracts, which aided the bulls in terms of an up move. Well, if you're looking at the clients, they have been adding long positions, but in Friday's trading session, they unwound some long positions. They were holding around 70,000 contracts. It came down to around 62,000 contracts. Though you still have the FIs that are net short, the clients are net long. Moving to the options data, then the call writers, they still believe that they can defend the higher levels. So that's going to be interesting. The 25,100 call, that's the most important one. The premium is around 130 rupees. So you just plug in the numbers, you'll say that on the upside, that 25,250, that becomes the next resistance zone going by what we saw in terms of the call writing. So that's the important mark you're looking at on the upside. On the downside, the 20 DMA, that becomes a reference point, which is at around 24,800. Just in the near term, if you're looking for a deeper level, then 24,500 is the level that you're looking at. You don't want that to break on the downside. And we've been making this point about the golden crossover. Well, that's taken place because the 50 DMA has moved above the 200 DMA. And that's normally a bullish indicator. And that's how it played out, right? Because last week we went down to around 24,500 and we did bounce from there. The Nifty Bank, the first reference point is deep. It's at around, the 20 DMA or thereabouts. And remember that CRR cut, that's going to be the booster shot because the NIMS impact may not be as much as earlier feared. So the Nifty Bank will have to lead the way from here on. In terms of stocks that I'm looking at, Hindustan Copper is the one that's moved into the F&O band. So we'll keep an eye out on that one. It's bounced quite well from the recent lows, and copper prices have been quite strong. That's the only listed play on copper prices. Hindustan Copper is the one I'll keep an eye out on.
Okay, so Hindustan Copper indeed on our radar. Thanks for that, Nigel. Let's kickstart the proceedings then with the equity call of the morning. And this one's coming in from Mahesh Nadurkar of Jefferies. He says the RBI clearly enunciated a pro-growth stance with an above consensus 50 basis points rate cut and 100 basis points CRR cut. He says despite shifting liquidity stance to neutral, they're still expecting another 25 basis points rate cuts from the central bank. He adds that RBI desires 7 to 8% GDP growth versus the current forecast of 6.5%. He says the RBI also eased gold loan norms supporting bottom-of-the-pyramid borrowers. In their model portfolio, Mahesh says they are replacing Axis Bank with Bandhan Bank and Nuvama, also replacing Sun Pharma with Wellspun Living. So some interesting changes in the portfolio. That's Jefferies.